what you can have is if you're working in Final Cut Pro and you have fields in the sequence, say if it's upper field, if you're using like cross dissolves and stuff like that, you'll still, if you do the deinterlace in the software, in your compression software, the fields, it doesn't do a very good job of deinterlacing where the transition is.
Yeah.
So in some cases, I think it's sometimes good to do the deinterlace before you go into the compression software. But you just sort of have to have a look at the transitions sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be an issue.
Good tip.
Yeah.
Shows how long I've worked with fields, I apologise.
Freeze frames and Final Cut, so I'll do it.
Yeah.
You know, if you know you're going to be watching the
You
interlace.
feel jitter.
Yeah, because you don't see it.
Yeah, you definitely have to
and you suddenly go
deinterlace
and watch
those.
it later and you go, oh my god, it's doing that.
Yeah, no, you definitely have to deinterlace those. Hopefully we're all working in progressive one day.
Yeah.
One day, we're not, unfortunately, and we still have a little, we've got 2 or 3 CRTs around the facility, which I check everything. Everything goes on the CRT before it goes up.
Well, our machine room is all CRT based for that reason. Actually,
Point
most of the
out
other suites are still CRT. This is our only suite that's LCD, isn't it? Yeah. So yes, as far as scaling frame size, look, it's probably almost worth us going back over that. But the last time we did the testing on this, from a 720 down to a 640 file, we found pretty much no difference whatsoever. The files looked different. One didn't look better than the other. The encode time was longer, so we decided to leave it off. Moving along, we've got a whole lot of special effects. Black and white, brightness and contrast. All really handy stuff. Get it right in Final Cut. Watermark. Look, I've never used any of it. You could use it if you wanted to, but at the end of the day, if all your settings are right in Final Cut, and you use it,
I've used the watermark before, it's quite alright. The biggest improvement on the latest version of QuickTime is the timecode burning.
Yep. Which is definitely handy, absolutely.
Better than Final Cut.
Yes.
Much better.
So yes, that is absolutely handy. I mean, these are what they are. I mean, they could become handy. The deinterlace there is not as good as the deinterlace in the previous page that we just came from. They are, it could be handy to get you out of Bollet for whatever reason, because suddenly you've exported this massive long QuickTime and you suddenly dropped it into compressor, and the gamma's wrong for whatever reason, because QuickTime likes to do that, and you can probably make a quick adjustment. We find that an uncompressed 8-bit 422 QuickTime is pretty stable nowadays, depending on what version of OS X you're on and what version of QuickTime you're on. But anyway, that's another story in itself. But at the end of the day, by all means use any of those if you want, but we've always left them off. They all work. We've tested every single one of them. We're probably never going to use any of those, but they're there. Same with, doing the EQ and all that as you're compressing. All that sort of stuff we leave. Cropping and scale and width and all that is what it is. So if you need to crop an image for whatever reason, because you encode stuff and it needs to be center cut or whatever, we do have presets, or we actually used to have a lot of presets that were 16:9 to 4:3 center cut and all that sort of stuff. We don't use any of them anymore. It's just simply playing around with those figures and working out how much you need to crop in and doing the sums. You probably will never need to encode it. I can't really see why people would want to crop an encoded picture. It should be what it is in the edit suite, I guess. Get it right in the edit suite. Frame size is obviously very important. And those numbers, once again, write down 640 by 360, by all means use that. If you think it's a too small a file and you want to send your clients bigger stuff, use a bigger one. It all comes down to a seesaw and balance of picture quality versus your frame size. Your file size, because your kilobits are limited to 1,000 kilobits a second, is going to come out the same. It's just your quality of your compression is going to go down as you make that frame size larger. And we find, a 640 by 360, a reasonable size on a computer for viewing.
What's with 640? Because I see it a lot for web and all that sort of stuff. Does that come from somewhere?
Yeah, when computers first started, and the screen resolution was 640 by 480.
Oh, okay. I was wondering why.
Long, many moons ago.
Yeah.
Look, we just, you know, we could have made it 635 if we wanted to. We could have made it 600. We could have made it 700. We just
some specs that come, you know, some specs say 640 by whatever.
Yeah, there is no magic number.
Yeah.
It all comes down to that seesaw. So the larger you make that number, you know, if you want to keep your file size at 4.5 meg for this example, the more the footage is going to look compressed. You know, the smaller you make the number, it does get to a point where, you know, you start making that 200 by 100. And yeah, the compression's going to look awesome, but the picture's so small, the pixels are so small that, you know, you've actually shot yourself in the foot anyway. So, with a H.264, you know, you for a longer form could go smaller. You could go to, you know, like 480 or something.
I usually do 512, you know, just to, I don't know, work for me. But yeah, I know it's sort of.
There is no magic number. We haven't come up with a magic number because there actually isn't one. We've just decided on 640. We've sort of, for 30 seconds at 640, you've got a reasonable file size. You've got up to 4.5 meg. You don't see much compression. You know, and that's it. It really starts to get down to, okay, well, I'm going to compare your MPEG to my MPEG and line them straight up together and go, well, yours is better, mine's a little bit bigger. And, you know, if you're delivering something to a client, you obviously want to give them the best possible. But what is the best possible? Is it a larger file with more compression, or is it a smaller file with less compression?
It also depends on how fine your text is on your screen. If you've got detail and stuff that people need to see. I mean, a lot of the ones they know what's on there because I've put it in the script and so on and so forth. So
absolutely.
You know, I don't give them. I probably only give them a 480, 360 sometimes. Even that small. You know, because the main thing they want to really do is just hear the delivery and the mix and all of that. I know all the visual details on it already, so it's not necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. So that, I mean, that is a personal thing. You know, it's like saying what's the best car out there. You know, one car drives fast, the other car goes up rocky roads. You know, horses for courses. Then AppleScript. If you're into Apple scripting, it's really handy. If you're not, probably not so handy. Look, this obviously gets to the more technical side. It is really handy the compressor does this, for the simple fact that you can automate some things in the sense of encoding stuff, and you know, AppleScript's quite a powerful scripting language. You can write anything you want, and tell the computer to do whatever you want. We've written it into our DVD one, so our DVD our DVD one will fire off a little script, and so basically what happens is we just drop a QuickTime on, or just drop that onto a QuickTime and hit go. There's settings for this. This is probably one to write down. Quality 7 megabits per second. That is the most reliable play in any DVD player, megabits a second for a DVD. Go any higher than that on a burnt disc, some DVD players won't play it.
Sorry, how many megabits a second is that?
7. Yeah. And that's a one-pass constant bit rate, right? You'll actually get a better quality DVD by doing a constant bit rate, 7 megabits, than you will a variable bit rate. The variable bit rate is purely to look at every single scene and go, okay, this scene doesn't need, as you know, I can compress this scene more, so I can fit more onto a DVD. Right? We've obviously got it set to this because the most we're ever sticking on DVD is 5 commercials or whatever. And at that rate, you're going to get 15 minutes per a gigabyte. So 4 gigabytes, there's an hour. So, but I always underestimate that. I probably go, okay, I'd probably get 50 minutes just to be safe, because the last thing you want to do is encode an hour's worth and realise that it's 4.5 gig and won't fit on a formatted DVD. It's really frustrating.